Lower the blinds. It's very hot here.
A short, sinewy Japanese man pointed to the secretary's window, through which the hot spring sun was casting hot rays, and lit a cigarette. The little Japanese secretary quickly closed the window and sat down at the typewriter again.
Reprint this 5th letter without changes or cuts.
Hanako handed her a stack of sheets written in an elegant female handwriting.
The rest will have to be reviewed more carefully.
There was a knock at the door.
Come in.
A young Japanese woman with a pale, yellow face and intelligent, lively eyes entered the room.
Is that you, Eri? What is new in the city?
For now, the police is in a hopeless situation.
Great. You are the pearl of our organization, Eri. I will gild you for these letters.
Eri raised her thin eyebrows, lowered her thick black eyelashes for a second, and said,
You know very well that I don't need gold.
Yes, I know. What you desire is more precious than gold. But you will have it. Hanako's word. And it, I think, is worth something. We don't have much time. We should be in Tokyo in 3 weeks. And we still need to do a lot of things here.
I like California.
Well, you can enjoy it as much as you want. You have done a good job.
And what about the letters?
I only looked at 5 of them. Some details, and I think a recruiting effort. But it is still unclear. The others I just flipped through quickly. They have something very essential and valuable. And we will receive a considerable amount in cash for these letters.
Yes. How?
We'll think about it later. And for now you are free.
For some time, Hanako looked thoughtfully through the blinds at the wide avenue, at the wonderful view of the western part of the city with its beautiful buildings, but his thoughts were far from the sight. Softly, cat-like, turning and throwing a piercing look at the secretary, who was hastily sorting through the keys, Hanako took another pack of written-off sheets, settled more comfortably on the wide black sofa, and delved into reading the 6th letter.
Letter 6. Guildsburg, April 19th, 1961.
Dear Ellie, it's been a few days since we parted, and I've already missed you. I am flooded with memories of the week spent with you and Dick at Kate's during the holidays. So great! Do you remember when the second day in the evening I guarded your solitude in the forest? My knees still tremble at the memory. Of course, I protected you and Dick from prying eyes and carefully looked around in all directions, but I watched you no less carefully. I'm sorry, Ellie, but this is the first time I've ever seen it. And forgive me 1,000 times, and don't be jealous if I confess to you that, looking at Dick's elastic, naked buttocks, I madly wanted to be under him instead of you. Forgive me. Don't be angry. And another time, remember? On the dark veranda, late at night. I have to say that not only me, but also Katie had a great time seeing what you and Dick were doing standing by the railing. Despite the darkness, your white buttocks clearly stood out against the black background. And you moved them so much that for a moment you even felt ashamed. Dick had very clearly visible white cuffs that slid around your waist and back. In general, I am still under the impression of those magical days. I have seen Will only twice so far, but I have not been with him. Katie, as promised, gave me the notes of a certain Morandi. These notes are directly related to her story. In the evenings I transcribed them for you and became very interested in their content, although I still do not understand what this Ricardo has to do with Katie's story. Her erotic adventures have fascinated me for a long time, but it is much deeper and more complex than just an ordinary slob. Apparently, she found herself at the crossroads of very turbulent currents, from which she still cannot get out herself. The main thing is that I am interested with her. I seem to be swimming in some turbulent, rapid flow of life. Of course, I still don't understand a lot, but who knows? Maybe fate has brought me together with a really special woman? Who knows? Katie handed me a new folder today. At first I even made big eyes. Are these not her diaries? However, she declared, with a completely serious air, that these were the same notes of Monsieur Morandi. It is worth getting to know them. I took them and decided to take them apart and rewrite them for you right away. What is hidden there, we will see. While I'm sending you the rewritten, read it and let me know what you think. You understand me. See you soon. Your Rose.
Diary of Riccardo Morandi, The Mysterious House. I have been entrusted with an extremely important task, to find the missing papers of Engineer Salvatore. Who knows, maybe the fate of my country depends on it. This complicated matter must have been assigned to me because I am very interested in it. Yes, I personally. What is known in this case? Part of the documents and manuscripts of Salvatore, who died in Hiroshima, was sent to Rome, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For their delivery, a special secret intelligence group was created, which was given a detachment of paratroopers. Their powers were the highest. On the entire path of the special aircraft, the team was protected by a group of fighters. In the Indian Ocean and in the Mediterranean, warships were allocated with the special task of being ready for rescue operations in the event of a forced landing on water. Apparently, in the corridors of power, the documents of the engineer Salvatore were given great importance. However, the initial review of the materials did not reveal anything significant, and they were all sent to the archive. It seemed that the mission ended in complete fiasco. Suddenly, there were rumors that Japanese intelligence was interested in the late engineer and his legacy. Tokyo has ordered several of its residencies to track down the missing materials and find them at any cost. The name Salvatore appeared in secret correspondence. Unbelievable sums of reward for a successful search result were mentioned. Then the high officials in Rome were also frightened. They began to look for the culprits. A commission of the most experienced specialists was urgently created to clarify the question of who handled the case of engineer Salvatore and why it was submitted to the archive. However, after a careful review and study of the available papers, the commission ultimately came to the paradoxical conclusion that Salvatore's documents are not among them. No traces, as if they did not exist. The Italian Secret Service searched the military archive from bottom to top, interviewed all employees, conducted many interrogations, but everything turned out to be in vain. Missing documents have disappeared. A thorough search yielded no results. Later, the French intelligence service, using all available methods, managed to establish that Salvatore's documents had indeed been in the archives department for some time. But something else turned out. The materials delivered from Japan were far from his entire heritage. After the death of Salvatore, some of the records and secret papers moved from Japan to Naples in a strange way. To Naples, not to Rome. And who would you think of? To the sister of the late engineer, who was peacefully staying in the same mansion in the southern part of the city, where Salvatore himself lived before his departure to Japan. However, the matter was complicated by the fact that the owner of the mansion changed her place of residence. At the beginning of 1947, Mademoiselle left for England. Her former apartment was occupied by other people. But that was only one side of the story. During the investigation, something else was revealed. Eleonora Salvatore did not personally receive any packages in her name from Japan, and the folder was accepted by an unknown person who managed to forge her signature. Individual facts, fragments of events, guesses, logical conclusions pushed the investigation in the direction of the land of the rising sun, to the mysterious sender of the package. It was there that the beginning of the thread should be looked for, although it was difficult to avoid the assumption that the tip of it was already in the hands of another organization, such as the Japanese spy service Hanako, which enjoys a very bad reputation. The information collected about Hanako gave reason to claim that this cunning, clever agent of several Japanese special services is extremely tenacious in achieving his goals and does not shy away from any methods. American agents were in constant contact with Japanese intelligence agencies, so Hanako's meetings with the Americans were as if completely natural and could not arouse any suspicions from the Japanese authorities. Hanako himself reported on them firsthand. But the question, is it about everything? The documents that came into our hands indicated that Hanako regularly received rather large sums of money from representatives of the Yankees, and the Japanese authorities knew nothing about this. Having such compromising materials, it was possible to try to grasp the tip of the thread leading to the solution of the mystery of engineer Salvatore. But according to all reports, Hanako was the closest to solving this mystery. On my way to Japan, I was recommended to stop for a few days in Naples. Without delaying the matter, immediately after the first conversation with the chief, I tried to contact Monsieur Cornet by phone and, to my surprise, this attempt was crowned with great success. I introduced myself as the heir-nephew of the engineer Salvatore and expressed my desire to have at my disposal all that remained in the house of his belongings, even if they were papers that no one needed. Monsieur Cornet turned out to be a very talkative and amiable man, and politely inquired about my occupations, my place of residence, and asked me to call after a while to enable him to search for Salvatore's papers. I gave quick, accurate, but completely false answers to all of his questions, except that my name was Riccardo Morandi. The next day, Monsieur Cornet informed me by telephone that, in addition to the trinkets he had found in the attic of the mansion, there was a folder with engineer Salvatore's papers that he would be happy to send to me by mail, and once again asked me to clarify my address. Barely concealing my pleasure, I thanked Monsieur Cornet and informed him that in 2 days I would visit him in person. There was no limit to my joy, but I decided not to tell the boss about my first successful steps yet, and to surprise him after the papers were in my pocket. I did not pay much attention to the chief's message during our last meeting that his assistant, as well as the commandant of the house in which I lived, were being asked about me by some people. Of course, they were told that they didn't know any Morandi here, and the conversation ended there. Those who were interested in me called from street phones to the same from different parts of the city, which naturally made it impossible to determine their location and even more so their identification. The calls were very suspicious. Apparently, they wanted to make sure whether such a Riccardo Morandi even existed. For my part, I told the boss that I do not know any persons who could know our office phones and my pseudonym, except for the leading members of our organization. The phone number is suspicious, said the boss. However, information leakage has always been, is, and will be, although, it's strange, very strange. The boss looked at me inquisitively and once again reminded me about the need to be careful when performing the task. I assured him that I perfectly understood the importance of the mission entrusted to me, and as for caution, it was hardly worth reminding me of it, since it was primarily about my own safety. The boss handed me the tickets, all the necessary documents, and once again checked how well I knew all the things that cannot be written down on paper. I did not feel any special joy at the farewell. My conscience in front of the boss was not entirely clear. I even hesitated for a moment. Or maybe I should have told him about the first steps I took, about the conversation with Monsieur Cornet and about our future meeting in Naples? No, I decided, since the package was not yet in my hands and many things seemed unknown to me, it was better to wait. When the first real success appears, I will immediately report everything to the boss. Especially now after these incomprehensible calls. To be honest, I was worried, even afraid. And here I am in Naples, in the city where I lived with my father and sister. Native city, and at the same time a foreign one. Stopping at the hotel indicated to me, I took a bath, changed my clothes, and, wasting no time, set out for one of the southern outskirts of the city to the house where Monsieur Cornet was supposed to be waiting. It was a mansion located deep in a large garden among tall trees. A gloomy stone fence separated the dense garden and the mansion from the deserted street. I pushed open the gate and entered the garden. Suddenly, a sonorous girl's voice rang out from behind the bushes. A beautiful girl with cheerful eyes came out from behind the bushes. She appeared to be 15 to 16 years old. A black and red striped nylon bathing suit, a short skirt and beach shoes completed her outfit, charmingly accentuating her slender childlike figure. The dazzling whiteness of her teeth stood out especially against her tanned face. She was tall, with long, graceful legs, narrow hips, and very small breasts. If she was in pants and had her hair cut, she could very well look like a handsome teenage boy. The coquette was obviously aware of all the beauty of her almost obscenely nylon-clad body and was embarrassed and blushed under my admiring gaze. I hastily took my eyes away from her, although in my mind I saw her completely undressed and devoted to me right here, in the garden, among the flowers. There was a heavy silence. The situation was getting funny. I decided not to give up and began to carefully study her clear shadow on the pale pink sand that was sprinkled on the garden path.
Monsieur?
Riccardo Morandi at your service, mademoiselle.
So you are visiting my uncle. He warned me. Please go to the hall. There are newspapers and magazines. You'll have to wait a little.
Thank you, mademoiselle, but I would with great pleasure prefer to spend a little more time with you. I looked up at her and saw that my compliment was received favorably. she said with a smile.
You are very kind, Mr. Morandi. My name is Mia, but if you want, you can call me Me. I like it, and I love being called that.
In her eyes again I saw cheerful sparks, fresh as a berry, and probably not kissed lips trembled in a smile.
This is probably indecent, but in the garden, when the weather is hot, I always wear a swimsuit. If you can do it on the beach, you can do it in your own yard too.
After a short conversation, she led me inside the house. It was very cozy in the hall. Lots of flowers in vases. The bright silk curtains on the windows moved slightly from the light breeze, and the refreshing coolness invigorated the body. I sat down in a soft chair on thin legs and picked up a brightly illustrated magazine. But there was nothing interesting there except for naked movie stars. The sight of undressed beauties returned my thoughts to the charming hostess of the house, and I began to recall the details of our meeting with pleasure. Mia entered the hall. She had already changed her clothes and looked even more charming. She was wearing bright red pants that came down just below the knees and clung tightly to her narrow hips, and a black blouse with a plunging neckline. She obviously loved those colors, red and black, and they really suit her. She looked at me with her amazing eyes, in which golden sparkles flickered and smiled calmly. Her dark curly hair was expertly styled like Brigitte Bardot. It was a portrait of a movie star, but much more alive, more attractive. She read genuine admiration in my look and turned slightly pink with pleasure.